Good afternoon, everyone. We at Fieldfisher are very proud and happy to welcome our fellow LDIA members and to host the webinar of today on this International Day of Tolerance. And for those who don't know it yet, Fieldfisher is a European law firm with offices in most of the capitals and cities of the UK and continental Europe. And it's our Brussels office counts 70 professionals, and we are very proud to have our own D&I chapter, which has been launched now for 2 years. Since then, we have been organizing seminars together with LDIA. We have been organizing panel discussions, but also we have reviewed our way of communicating and acting, as well as challenging our functioning, mainly on HR aspects. For all of this, we have the support of our D&I manager, dedicated to develop the D&I strategy of the firm, but also to implement plans to promote diversity within our organization. Isn't that, Jay?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Jay Wetter. I'm the head of inclusiveness and diversity at Fieldfisher, and I'm based in London, but I work very closely with Stefan and the Brussels office, as well as all of our offices internationally. And as Stefan mentioned, we do a lot of work to ensure that we've got an inclusive culture, that we promote our values, and that people that work for Fieldfisher feel supported, they feel they can thrive, they feel that they can succeed at the firm. And we do this through lots of ways that many of you probably also do at your firm. So we do, we have employee networks, we do events around our values, we do outreach programs with local schools, we do a lot of work on bias interruption with respect to our people, systems, and processes. And we do this across all our offices. And I think probably like many of you, the role has changed a lot in the past 8 months as we've been on lockdown in our various countries and we've been out of our offices. So much of my role has traditionally been focused on events and meeting people in person, and that's all had to change. And it's been a challenge to make sure that we can still convey our values and we can still convey our culture when we're doing everything online. But I think one of the benefits of doing stuff online is that the walls of the offices and the indeed international boundaries have become irrelevant. We can all join different online events together, and we're all seeing them from the same point of view, regardless of the fact that I'm in London, you're in Brussels. We're all having the same experience, and I think there's something very inclusive about that. And I think that's one of the side effects of this very strange time that's been a positive one. And I think today is a really great example of a creative way that we're able to share a story that's not necessarily a traditional one, but I think will be really entertaining and will be a really nice change of pace for everybody on today's event. So I'm going to pass it over back to Stefan, and he's going to introduce our speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Going back to the subject of today, tolerance, and if you look it up in the dictionary, you will find that it is the willingness to accept behavior and beliefs that are different from your own, you might not agree with, or even you might not approve them. And if we look at even in a more negative perspective, it is the ability to deal with something unpleasant and annoying. So quite some negative connotation. Now, positive thoughts and feelings will help to see those differences more positively. Your genes, your family, your early learning, and social environment set the stage for your outlook on life in general and on tolerance in particular. But this is not set in stone. And working to change your view on the world and your view on tolerance, the differences from a negative feeling to put them in a more positive experience, well, that is the challenging part and the rewarding part. Indeed, negativity is stressful. And although some of us are born with some positive temperaments, optimistic temperaments, the positive engagement and attitude can be learned. After all, we have a freedom of choice, positive of what actions we take and how we choose to stand and to be in life. And that is why we have invited Laurence Vanet today, because we think she is going to bring us a more positive side and a more positive view on differences, on being different. Laurence Vanet is created her own company, and she believes in the formula that freedom and responsibility gives happiness and performance. She has a long way in HR, HR manager in the private, in the public sector, and that is also in that capacity that she was nominated and won the prize of Manager of the Year in 2012. And today she is the author of the bestseller Happy HR. So we couldn't choose for someone better than Laurence to talk us about the positive sides of differences. Laurence, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Stefan, for this introduction. I will just take back the slides. Up, so here we are. I think I'm not used to work with this tool, so not yet. I need to get back to Saba. Maybe if you just can help me once again on how I can take the floor back, because I don't have my name in the list.
Yeah, if you just go back to the sharing.
Yes, I do.
And if you just say give keyboard and mouse and take it away from Stefan.
Okay, here we are. Thank you. Thank you. It's a kind of lesson for me to go to webinar today as well. So I'm still learning stuff and I'm really happy with that. Thank you, Saba. So, is it working? Oops. Yes, it is. Here we are. Just make this one here and this out, and here we are. So yes, we will see together how tolerance can contribute to our happiness and performance. And welcome on board, because we will have a journey across history, across social events, across business habits and management styles that will prove us, I hope at least, that being tolerant can bring you more happiness. And if you are happy as well, you can be more performant, what every company is looking for. And of course, thinking of tolerance is not only today, the day of tolerance, but it has to be every day. So it's really something we can cultivate. And if we look back in the time, and once upon a time, I have to say that as long as we can find, we have three philosophical mainstream that is giving us some insight about tolerance. And the first one is about Taoism. It appears in the 6th century before the modern and the current era. And of course, as everybody knows here, it has been founded by Lao Tzu. It's a legendary figure that decided to promote his knowledge, his wisdom. And Taoism comes from the Chinese word Tao, which is signifying, sorry, the way, the path, the road. Well, it's really the journey you have to take as a human being, just to prove yourself that you are part of the universe and you live in harmony with the universe. It's of course one of the most important philosophical Chinese tradition. And it's based on several concepts like naturalness, you belong to the nature, simplicity, spontaneity, and there are three treasures that are really key. It's about compassion, frugality, and humility. And already in Taoism, we find the word tolerance. Just because you cannot be a part of the universe if you do not accept to live in a flow with the universe. And Taoism sees itself as the exact opposite of the second philosophical mainstream related to tolerance, which is the Confucianism. So Confucianism is a philosophy, it's a belief system from ancient China, which laid to the foundation of much of the Chinese culture. As you know, Confucius was a philosopher, a teacher, also lived in the 6th century before the current era. It's the philosophy that is promoting some very, very strong and rigid principle of living together and living for yourself. And it has been promoted by the state as the official philosophy. The golden rule of Confucianism is do not do to others what you wouldn't like other ones to do to you. And maybe it can sound familiar to the Catholics of you because it's also one of the main principles in the Catholic religion. The main idea of Confucianism is the importance of having a good moral character, which can affect the world around you, as the idea is, again, that you belong to a cosmic harmony. And Confucius stated that if the emperor, meaning the big leader, the most important leader of the country, so if the emperor has moral perfection, his rule will be peaceful and benevolent. So this moral character is achieved through the virtue of Ren, which is a word for humanity as such, but it leads to more virtuous behaviors such as respect, altruism, humility, and tolerance. So what Confucius is telling us is really that every leader has to promote tolerance to be sure to be a good leader and able to lead a morale and success to the humanity. And then after Confucius, if you, that has been translated by many people, of course, people who lived at the same time as him, but it's still today translated by other philosophers and so on. We have found in a book a discussion, a supposed discussion between Confucius and someone who was just asking him who and how he could implement the 5 moral traits that are promoted by Confucius. And Confucius answered, apparently, that those moral traits are courtesy, tolerance, trustworthiness, diligence, and generosity. He said that courtesy will not meet with abuse. Tolerance will gain the support of the multitude. Trustworthiness will win the people's confidence. Diligence will be rewarded with success. And generosity will allow directing people. So if you want to live, to work, to be together, we have absolutely to cultivate together tolerance. And then we have the third mainstream philosophical theory, which is Buddhism. So again, Buddhism is the faith that was founded by Siddhartha Gautama, aka Buddha, more than 2,500 years ago in India. So, and again, it's exactly the same period of time. And many Buddhists believe that the word peace cannot only be achieved if we first establish peace within your minds and within our minds. So the idea is that anger or any other negative states of mind are the cause of the wars and the fighting. So the idea of tolerance and acceptance are key principles. Buddhists promote non-competing behavior, and it's perceived as the most important behavior of state of mind. And behind non-competing, it has been told that Buddha said that among 6 ways of salvation and the 10,000 methods of worship practice, being tolerant comes first. So you see, basically, being tolerant is really something that appears a long period of time. And I would like now to propose you to make a big jump in the history I won't make a statement about religion like the Catholic, the Muslim, the Judaism, because they are almost based always on the same principle of tolerance. But the first time we find a book in history, or at least in the Occidental history, it was in 1763. And it has been written by Voltaire. It's the Traité sur la tolérance. The fact is that in Toulouse, in 1761, there was a shopkeeper's son who hanged himself in the family home. And there were a rumor that quickly ran around the city just because the son had been killed by his father because he wanted to become a Catholic. Basically, the shopkeeper, Jean Calas, was a Huguenot. And the town was about to celebrate the 200th anniversary of the Saint Bartholomew Day massacre. And that's a day where 2,000 Protestants have been murdered very barbarly by the Catholics. So at this time, the Toulousains were really not in mood for tolerance and even not for scepticism. And so Calas, during his trial, was tortured and then purely executed. And that was the incident that propelled Voltaire into writing his Traité sur la tolérance. And it's a long and very deep examination into the also long established tradition of murdering people who go against dogma, and specifically religious dogma. So he made really the statement that tolerance was something absolutely needed in an organization, in a society, just to be able to live properly together. And I don't know if you know it, but this treaty has been a bestseller again 5 years ago in France, just after the murder that happened in Charlie Hebdo, and that's happened, almost 6 years now. So it's just started again to be a bestseller. So it's really the first book about tolerance. And then we have a second very epic moment. It's a declaration of the rights of man and of the citizen that has been set by France National Constitution Assembly in 1989, as everybody here knows it. And there were a lot of debates that have been happened during this period because most of the people who were thinking about the content of this declaration were thinking about putting the word tolerance, as we see what kind of problem intolerance was created. And they refused to put tolerance as a keyword, just because they said that if a society is tolerant enough, we do not have to talk about tolerance. And that's why they choose liberty, freedom at this place. And they said liberté, fraternité, égalité. Those are the three main words. It's just a statement. Freedom is here to not talk about tolerance, because if we are free, you are free as well to accept people and to tell people what you think about. And this statement about tolerance as it's not the right place within a declaration has been set by Mirabeau. And then we have the modern world. And I just would like to start in our modern world with the word of maybe our grandfathers, grandparents, or grandparents, where we were forced basically to meet other people just because of business reasons. Of course, well before the cardboard suitcase period, as we said it in Belgium, it's when most of Italian people came here for work, and they used some cardboard suitcase to transport some clothes and so on. Belgium saw the arrival of merchant bankers from Lombardy, from Firenze, from Genova, who made businesses in the Flanders area from the beginning of the 13th century. So there is a long history of culture and trade between Belgium and Italy. And these are the primary reasons why the Italians who had to leave their lands, because they wanted to refuse the authoritarian regime of Italy, and they want to find some peace, they came in Belgium. But they also, some of them came in Belgium to find some work. And that's what we call the beginning of the big immigration of workers. So they arrive as miners in Belgium at the second half of the 19th century. And this flow of migrants has just forced our grandparents to discover new culture, new food, new people, but was still almost the same as us. So it wasn't a shock. But nevertheless, this was really the first time that as a neighbor, maybe you should show some tolerance. And then there were some shock as well. So if tolerance has been introduced by the necessity to accept people to do a job that you didn't want it to do, here I have to confess with you that my grandfather told me that the first time he saw a black person, it was during the Second World War. There were in the Ardennes a battalion, so a group of soldiers that has really made on only black people. So the segregation existed as well in the US Army. And this battalion has been deactivated after the war, but they have been reactivated as well at some other period by the US Army. So tolerance was at this time a racial system. It was a racial, and it wasn't, of course, a racial system because people was just classified by the color of the skin. And that's true that if we were confronted to those people who are so skin-wise different than us, in the US, it was even more dramatic because Black people were still obliged to live differently as white people. Maybe you remember this Rosa Parks, this famous lady who refused to give up her bus seat in 1955. Well, the fact is that the bus was overcrowded and the back of the bus was reserved and booked for the Black people. And over there, it was just not to do. So even the Black people had to come at the front of the bus to pay their fare and then to step out and to step in back at the bus just to find a seat. And she refused to do it, and she refused to leave her seat to a white man. So her refusal, her way of behavior helped initiate the civil rights movement in the United States. Basically, it's her action that inspired leaders of the local Black community to organize the Montgomery bus boycott that lasted for 1 year and that just stopped because the US Supreme Court ruled that bus segregation was unconstitutional. So here, tolerance is not, again, a moral trait. It's not by benevolence that you are tolerant. It's just because there is a law court who decided that it was unconstitutional. So we see that tolerance came from work, came sometimes from war, came from law, and then it can also come from the social society. Jump into the early 80s in France. There were some, in different cities in France, there were some young North African boys who have been killed just because they came from North Africa. And it started the movement of SOS Racism. It's an NGO that was created after the very first March for Equality and Against Racism in France. It was in 1984. It's just 35 years ago. It's not that long, which is quite crazy. But it was just a few years before another big movement that has been even more important, of course, than those social walls in France, which is the fall of the Berlin Wall. This is where a society says stop. We cannot accept anymore that politics are deciding for us what is good or what is not. And people living outside or behind the world. They are just people like us, and some of them are from our family. So the social society just took the leadership to make a better society, more tolerant. So this 9th of November 1989 was a pivotal event in the world history that is really marking the failing of the Iron Curtain and the start of the fall of the communism in Eastern and Central Europe. It's a little bit at this period, just 3 weeks later, sorry, that we ended the Cold War. And 1 year later, it took 1 year just to reunify Germany. So at this period of time, in the 80s, this is really where we as citizens decided that tolerance was good to us and that we had to accept people for what they were. So today, we are also a little bit pushed by these young generations who are just basically open to the world. This is a picture of my son and his best friend when they were kids. My son is the third one, Victor, and his best friend at this time were Tom, South African, Titouan, which was Franco-Cuban, and Sasha, who was not really a girl because she deserved to be a boy, according to them. So on this stage, I have to say that the tolerance regarding women maybe could be improved. But nevertheless, I want just to tell you, Victor, his best friend, Tom's, they were like brothers. Even they do not understand that they weren't brothers. And one time I just found Victor crying so much in his bed, and I said, "What happened, Lulu?" And he just told me, "I don't know why I'm not like Tom." I said, "How that? You're not like Tom?" "No, Tom is so beautiful. He has a black skin. He's so much beautiful than I just want to be like him. I just feel ugly." And there were Japanese people in his class. There were people from South Africa, and Victor felt a little bit strange that he was only just white. And so for them, tolerance it's not a question, basically. It's just they see people for what they are. They see people for the values, for the virtues, for the pleasure they have to work together. And this generation who has seen much more, I don't know, much more nationality that we have ever do when we were kids, they are pushing us because today they will soon knock at the door of the organization and they just expect us in the organization to be tolerant. So what are we talking about, basically? What is tolerance? Stefan said exactly the same definition as the one I found, which are basically quite negative. The ability or willingness to tolerate the existence of opinions or behavior that one dislike or disagree with, which is basically something quite strange. It's a little bit bitter. Tolerance is seen normally as something which is a virtue, and the definition is absolutely negative. And even more, if we are talking about tolerance, it's just like if we consider that if I tolerate you, it means that you are a stranger to me, and I'm welcoming you, and I'm tolerating you for your religion, for your nationality, for your ethnic, for your gender, for your philosophy, for your politics, for your education, anything, but you are different for me. And there are so many topics that we can put behind tolerance that it cannot be univoc. And it leads us to this very strange paradox that has been developed by Sir Carl Raymond Popper. He is a very famous Australian and British philosopher, academic and social commentator. And he's known for his vigorous defense of liberal democracy and the principle of social criticism that he believed made a flourishing open society possible. And the way he stated the paradox of tolerance is like it's unlimited tolerance must lead to the disappearance of tolerance. If we extend unlimited tolerance even to those who are intolerant, if you are not prepared to defend a tolerant society against the onslaught of intolerant, then the tolerant will be destroyed and the tolerance with them. It's quite strange, isn't it? If we are tolerant, if we are too tolerant, we will disappear. And remember, in France, in 1989, we just said that tolerance couldn't be stated as such in the human rights for the men and for the citizens. So it's a very paradox. And in addition, Popper said that the term intolerance is simple equivalent in community as it is today. And it says as well that tolerance is not innate and not spontaneous. It's an approach which is born from the opposite. It comes by reaction to intolerance. Popper says that man is intolerant by nature. Everyone believes that they have the truth and denies this right to the other one. And as man is gregarious animal, is in cooperation is an important factor for the development of his intolerance. So he will be intolerant if the other one are intolerant around him. So he can be accepted and tolerated. So it's a very, very strange paradox. And I have to say that I feel a bit confused about it, because when I saw my kid when he was a toddler, and when I see this gift that I really like of those two toddlers, why can't we say that normally by nature we are tolerant? By nature, when we are kids, we tolerate everybody who's just making feeling us good or happy. So we could state that the new tolerance would be a universal value, leading to harmony and peace through a sort of ideal syncresis that allows cohabitation of all the differences, erasing all the antinomies. And but we have to know that some people who are promoted or promote themselves as the most tolerant people are basically some of the most intolerant people, because they do not accept people who don't think like them. So what we need to do is a little bit what Henri Broche said. Henri Broche is a French professor at the University of Nice, Sophia Antipolis, and he is the director of the lab of zététique, which is a very strange word, which is the art of the doubt. But what Broche said, because he just he make a lot of studies, around tolerance. He has to say that, first of all, it must be remembered that tolerance is not the acceptance of tolerated ideas. I repeat, tolerance is not the acceptance of tolerated ideas. In fact, to accept the expression of a different opinion is not accepting that this opinion is true, and it's not to recognize the validity or the relevance of this opinion. It's just granting the right to this opinion to be expressed. So if you are tolerant, if you respect the person in front of you, it doesn't mean that you agree with this person. It just means that you tolerate, that you accept that this person has other ideas than yours. Unfortunately, many of us don't want to be aware of our intolerance. Just because we feel satisfied with our condition and we're looking little or no way to change it. And it's certainly the result of two conditions. First of all, it's really the relationship to fear of the unknown. It's just like the monster above the under the bed, sorry, and we don't want to see what we don't know because we are just afraid of it. And the second condition is our ego, just because we think that we have better ideas and better opinion than the other one. So what can we do? What can we do in an organization? What can we do in a society? I think that it stands in a few words. Fight against intolerance requires access to information in order to limit the influence of hate propagators. The fight against intolerance requires education because it often stems from ignorance and fear, or of the unknown, or of the other one. The fight against intolerance requires laws as well, just to guarantee justice and maybe to punish discrimination. And the fight against intolerance requires individual awareness. We need to know about ourselves and what we think about, because intolerance of a society is measured by the sum of the individual manifestation of this intolerance. And if we are intolerant, people who are victims of our intolerance will seek revenge. So that's a very vicious circle. So if we promote in the organization, in the society, access to information, access to education, if we design together correct laws or rules or way of living together, and if we are self-aware of what we have to do, this is really the most important. And organization and leaders who haven't understood that and who are not aware that they have a role to play in promoting access to information, to education, to design or to create the right rules to live and to work together, and who are not reflecting about how they behave themselves and how, well, of the level of tolerance. If those organizations and those leaders don't do anything, that will make some damages in the organization. Because the youngest one, the young generation, won't come to work for us. And the people who are there currently are just tired of not being respected. Because if you are just facing intolerance, it's just telling you that you are not respected. And if you are not respected, you are not living in a world of trust. And if you are not living in a world of trust, you cannot be happy. And everybody, every day, once we get out of our bed, it's not to be performant. It's not to seek for health, wealth or whatever. It's just to have as many happy moments as we can. And indeed, this is really an important topic for the organization, to have happy people. There are plenty of surveys that are conducted every year, and every year for almost 1995 now, where Martin Seligman designed the positive psychology. There are links that are made between being happy and being performant in the organization. And we know that people who are happy at work are twice less sick. If you are happy, you are less stressed. If you are less stressed, you will have a better immune system. If you are happy at work, you will be 6 times less absent. And we talk about the small absenteeism. It's the absenteeism where you have, for example, a fight or a dispute with your colleagues or with your boss, and you say, okay, tomorrow I don't care, I don't go to work, or I do not connect to work because I will work from home for a long period of time for the moment. But I don't go. And in Belgium, that's not a problem because we are paid anyway. Even if it's for 1 day and up to 1 month, you will be paid by your employer. So people who are unhappy at work will use 6 times more single day off than happy people. You are also 9 times more loyal when you are happy at work. And it doesn't mean that you have to tattoo your firm logo in your neck or on your back, but you don't go elsewhere if you feel well treated, accepted, and not only tolerated, but really accepted for what you are, for who you are within the organization. But that's not all. You will be as well 31% in average more productive if you are happy at work. There are, once again, plenty of surveys who are just showing us, for example, on plant workers, if you broadcast positive messages during the breaks, the coffee breaks, or you have access to positive experience during these coffee breaks, the workers, the plant workers who are going back to their workstation, they will be 14% more productive directly. And it goes up to 350% more productive. So there is a growth curve, and the average, the top of this growth curve, is about 31%. So if you want, for example, to invest in a policy of tolerance, of happiness at work, whatever, and you have to gain some budget from your CFO or your financial director, you just have to tell them that for 3 happy full-time equivalents, the 4th is for free. So we need to invest in people's happiness. You are also 55% more creative if you are happy at work. It's not only a question of having more ideas. It's just because if you feel better, if you are right in your shoes, you won't have any problem to talk about your issues that you're facing maybe today, or difficult file that you have to manage or to cope with another colleague. And we know that there are more in several heads than only in one head. And sharing with people, daring to express your ideas, knowing that your ideas will be accepted, that you will be listened to, that you will be heard directly. The influence on the creativity, the emergence of new ideas has been calculated in Harvard University, and it's about 55% regarding people who just say they are neither happy, neither unhappy, they're just there to work. So those are all KPIs that we are just monitoring, and even more in period like the one we are living through. We want and we have to have happy people at work. Because if you want to have happy customers as well, you need to have happy employees. You need to be happy yourself. It's impossible to make someone happy if you are not happy yourself. So what is the recipe of happiness at work? Well, I'm sorry. The center of the floor stated is still in French. Sorry for that. We know, and we have conducted survey, and we made them validated by the Canadian University from Montreal. There are 6 pillars who are just contributing to your happiness at work. You will feel happier if you have the autonomy. If you are respected as an adult, as a grown-up, and you can make your own choice. You have the freedom of choice, you have the freedom to decide, you have the freedom to choose and to organize your time to work from wherever it's the best for you. But of course, it will your freedom will end where my freedom starts, and the other way around as well. So you can have a lot of autonomy, just as you have autonomy in your private life. You need to have the same level of autonomy in your work life, knowing as well that you have to be responsible of your choices. Another very important factor is the connection. It's the ability you have to relate to the other ones. And as we said earlier, tolerance is absolutely necessary to be a part of the group. It's about sharing the same values. It's about sharing the same purpose, the same envy to do something together. And so it's all about the team spirit. It's all about the communication tools we will use and so on. The third pillar, which is really important, it's your contribution. It's that you feel recognized for your knowledge, for your experience, for your know-how, for the way you relate to the other one. And so the way you will behave, it's the way you contribute to create added value for the organization, for your team, but also for yourself in your own development. And this is really creating happiness for yourself on day-to-day life. Fourth pillar, it's about the results. What could be worse than never get feedback about what you are doing? And that you cannot monitor your own results, that you cannot have access to the KPIs that you are producing. You would feel like a guinea pig running in a wheel, and you are just spending a lot of energy, but you don't know exactly what are the results. So having a view on your results, being able to manage your progresses is absolutely necessary to contribute to your happiness at work. Of course, purpose is important. And it's even more important today that we have been, for some of us, or in some organization, a little bit, how would I say, we couldn't find a sense of purpose of what we were doing on an everyday basis, just because we had methodology to follow, because we had rules to follow, and we just have lost the big picture. So having this purpose, knowing why you get out of your bed in the morning, knowing what is important to you, knowing what are your values, this is definitely important, and making them known by the other ones and being able to share them is essential. So it's also about tolerance, because if you are not ready to accept ideas different from yours, it will be really difficult to build a common sense of purpose. And the last point, the last pillar, is about recognition. It's a little bit linked to results, but it's first of all being recognized as a person, not as an employee, not as a number on a payroll list. Is we know who you are, we know exactly what kind of added value you are creating, we know what is important to you, we know what are your dreams within the organization or within your life in general, and we know maybe how we can contribute to help you to achieve those goals. So recognition, it's all about performance management, it's all about the way we will follow not only the performance, but as well the development. So those 6 pillars, they are on day-to-day basis building your happiness at work: autonomy, connection, contribution, results, purpose, and recognition. And if you are happy at work, as we said, you will be more performant. So it's a win-win situation. And we are in a work context, so we cannot ignore performance. This is not, a bad word. We can talk about happiness at work and performance, because the goal of any kind of organization, and we know it, it's to be performant. But as I said earlier, nobody is waking up in the morning telling themselves, today I will be super performant. Well, at least it's not my case. Maybe it's yours, but that's not my case. What makes me get out of my bed is hopefully to have the best day possible, to be aware of those small moments of joy and to be grateful at the end of the day, being able to cultivate this sense of maybe this wasn't the best day of the week or of my life, but nevertheless, I'm still able, before going to bed, to think about three main or three small moments during my day that have been happy. And the problem with happiness, I think you will agree with me, problem of happiness is super, super personal. What will make me happy won't make me maybe happy, make you maybe happy. So you will have for sure a different definition of happiness. So if I want, as a leader or as a HR person or whatever, as a colleague, if I want to take care of your happiness, basically I can't. Everybody is the primary or the sole actor of his own happiness. So the only solution I have, and we get back to this so important notion of freedom, it's to give you the liberty, the freedom to pick up in the organization what is making you happy. With this rule that we stated earlier, my freedom ends where your freedom starts. So I need to tolerate that you maybe need something else than I, and I need to accept that you can make other choice than I, and therefore that my freedom will be defined by yours too. And another rule which is really important about freedom, because if you just make sure that, or you just have as a goal the performance of the organization and your own happiness, and you give freedom to everybody, you can directly see the mess it can be. So freedom will go directly with its corollary, which is responsibility. No freedom without responsibility. If I make choices, I am responsible for the choices I made, and I have to respect my engagement. And respecting my engagement, I will for sure ensure my level of performance. So this is the positive circle. And unfortunately, what we experience in most of the organization today is, I want you to be performant, so I will define your level of responsibility. So I will define your level of freedom. And at the end of the day, I really don't care if you are happy. And as you are not happy, your level of performance will decrease. So as the level of performance is decreasing at company level, the responsibility will be even more defined, the freedom will be even more cut, and so on and so on. So it's really the other way around. I will have to give you freedom and to accept maybe that you will do other choices that I would do myself, but I will ask you to take your responsibility to make sure that you are performant. And of course, being free to make your own choices will make you happy. Georges Courteline, another French guy, said, if it was necessary to tolerate in other people everything that one permits oneself, life would be unbearable. And that's true. Sometimes we do not accept the other ones, what we accept for ourselves. So we need to learn to live together. We need to build, and this is a picture from the old world, you know, when we could touch people and shake hands and not wearing masks, but nevertheless, even at distance, and even more at distance, we can still do stuff. First of all, we have to keep calm. It's not about covering with a sheet of plenty of color, rainbow color, the policy, or putting good words on the walls, whatever. It's not that. It's not like we had for the sustainable development, everything painted in green, and now it's happiness at work, everything painted in pink. No, it's not about painting roofs or walls or whatever. It's not neither about giving medicine to people, to have some fairy dust that we could share in the office. It's not neither going with too much cautious. We still have to take some risk somehow. And there are still a lot we can do to increase tolerance, to increase trust, and to increase happiness at work. And it starts with building a happy culture, as we said. And a happy culture, once we know that culture is a collective programming of the mind, which distinguish a member of one group from another one. I show you a picture that express that. Sorry if I'm hurting some of you, but it's quite relevant. Do you remember this picture of the person who is refusing to make the sign to the furrow? He has a culture different from the other one. But culture is also the collective programming of the mind, which distinguishes a group from another. Not only an individual in a group, but a group from another. Example, group of beautiful women, group of beautiful women. They are not the same women, but they are more beautiful. And we see that they probably share different culture. So what can influence a culture? Of course, as we said earlier, they can have international culture, and it's based about politics, philosophy, religion, education. This is something which is across the borders. There will be the culture within the borders, the national culture. So that's the idea that we as a country, as the citizen of a country, think or have a different way of living and sharing values and maybe tolerance that the country next, just behind the border. There is the organizational culture, of course, like Google or whatever. There is the functional culture. You can share a culture amongst a job, amongst people who are sharing the same job. And there is the personal culture. For some of us, international will be more important than national, organizational, functional, and then only the personal. But for some of us, it will be the other one. Our personal culture is the most important, even more than my function, than my organization, than my nation, and the international choices I can do. So how can we build an organizational culture? At the level of an organization, a system of shared meaning held by members that distinguishes the organization from other organizations. So that's the set of norms, values, and practices you will share within the organization. So it could say, maybe we could say that culture is a kind of set of instructions that you can plug in your colleague's head when they join the organization. Well, it's a bit more tricky than that. Culture will be a set of values and norms shared by a group. So as a company, we share the same values and the same norms. But as a person, I will share myself, beliefs, and attitudes. And so it will influence the company culture. And the company culture will influence our presence on the market and the way we are perceived. If you take this well-known coffee maker, you can expect the best from them, or at least some enjoyable coffee, because you will find them at the airport when you go for a holiday or whatever, or you can rest and you can have free Wi-Fi. But nevertheless, they have somehow reinvented the coffee. If you go to a Belgian ministry where I worked there for 4 years, this is the understanding of a coffee. You can see the difference as me. And only this pot of coffee is just reflecting the culture. I'm sorry for my ex-colleagues, but that was so true. That was exactly the understanding of the sense of making people happy at work. So what could make a culture change? Is it possible, basically? Well, a culture is like an iceberg. You see the culture by the way people are doing the stuff. But behind the surface, you have the way people are thinking about doing the stuff. And then the way they are feeling. And if you want to change the culture, you can change way of life, book, or rules, or the customs, or the laws, or the institutions, or the governance, or the methods, or whatever. You can change it, of course. But if you do that, and only that, it's just like if you have some ice cube in a glass and you take your fingers and you push on the ice cube to make it move the way and at the speed you want in your glass. And this is why we said to the children, never play with the ice cube in your glass, just because it's just making a storm within this glass and it's just putting water everywhere and it goes nowhere. So if you want to change the culture, you have at least to go below the surface and make people think about it. And then you have to talk about the norms, about ideology, about philosophy, about beliefs. So you have there a topic about tolerance, because maybe other ideas than yours will come up. But people have to understand why they are doing the stuff and what is the philosophy behind that. And if you do that, you can change a culture. If you push on doing and thinking, your iceberg will move. But unfortunately, as long as you stop to push, the iceberg will get back to the initial state. And if you push really hard, a lot of communication, a lot of workshop, a lot of poster on the walls and so on and so on. And the iceberg is really moving and you are so happy. It's 18 months that you have this communication project. Once you stop it, the iceberg is not getting to the initial place. It's just getting on the opposite side. And that's why when you when you try to change a culture, that's why a culture is going this way and then the opposite way. It's just because you don't go to the feeling part of the culture. People have to feel that it's right to them, that it goes together with the all set of values. They can have to translate it into attitudes, and they see that the behaviors are coherent with what we say, what we think, and what we do. And it goes somehow with the myths. So you see how tolerance is important to build a culture, because we need to understand everybody's point of view to design something which is really common. If you do something and if you push only on doing, it can be changed, but it won't last. If you push on doing and thinking, it may change over time. But if you align the way people feel about what they live and how they work within the organization, maybe it won't change if they don't have the willingness, because they are not feeling it's good for them. And that's why it's so important to have everything aligned on that. So how can we build a culture? Well, it's of course the way you lead people. Of course, the leadership style is so important and has to reflect the values you want to share. If you have tolerance as a value or a way of living, but the leadership is not showing any sign, it won't last, it won't change. That's also about the recruitment and the way people will join your organization. As from the moment you post a job and the vocabulary you use and the channels you use to attract people, if you attract people thanks to other colleagues, you will have more chance to gain people that are already aligned with your culture. It's also about the way you train people. If you do not, for example, ask your training provider to get interested in your values, in your system of beliefs, in what you want to share as a behavior and so on. And if they do not start with what is really lived within the organization, it will be really hard, even if it's a very practical and expertise set of skills that has to be learned. Your trainers has to be absolutely aligned with the way you want people to behave. It's the way you will design feedback process. How do you give feedback? How do you ask for feedback? How is it given? At what time? Is this something which is really in the flow or not? And how do you manage people who disagree with you? How do you manage people who are not doing exactly the way you want them to behave? So it's also linked, of course, with the reward system, if any. And when we said recognition is a pillar for happiness at work, I wasn't thinking about bonuses. I was thinking about giving opportunity for development. I was thinking about recognizing people for their say, to open them opportunity to develop themselves on another job or whatever. It's also about the corporate style, of course, and the communication channels and the work environment. So everything has to be designed regarding the values you want to be lived within the organization. So leading by example is absolutely necessary in an organization that want to promote tolerance or that want to fight intolerance, which is even more important. I would like you to remember maybe one thing regarding this topic is that if you are not tolerant towards yourself or towards the other ones, it will be difficult for you to be really happy. And happiness is one of the biggest wealth you can gain in life, because happiness is the only thing that gets doubled if it's shared. It's a quote from a French doctor, Albert Schweitzer. I find it so true, and even more necessary that we are obliged now to work at distance. I would have been so pleased to meet you in real life, in face-to-face, in the room, and to feel your energy and to know how you react towards this speech. But nevertheless, being happy, I'm pretty sure that I could maybe share with you some of this happiness and some happy thoughts as well, to consider tolerance as a treasure, but a treasure you don't have to keep yourself, a treasure that you really need to share with the people around you, even if you don't like them, even if they are not sharing exactly the same thoughts of you. This is your best treasure. I will finish with this quote from Mathieu Ricard. Happiness is not given to us, nor is unhappiness imposed. We are constantly at the crossroads, and it's up to us to choose the direction to take. It's the strength of soul and inner freedom that make all the difference. Be happy. You will be healthier. You will be richer from positive emotion, and it's good for the social security. And social security, it's my ex-colleagues when I work at the federal. So thank you for them, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Laurence. Before we finish off, we have had a few questions come in, and maybe we can discuss them, and then the rest of the questions we can get back to you in email format. But one interesting question that we had, and you touched upon it a little bit, but maybe you can elaborate for this participant. They were very interested in the stats that you provided, but they asked, do you have any tips on how you can make management understand that tolerance of their staff and people's opinions and motivating their peoples is in their interest?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very, very interesting question, because it's such a hot topic. if you have a manager in front of you who has a little bit stubborn or narrow-minded, maybe it might be interesting or in face-to-face, depending of the personality of this person, or maybe in a group during a meeting as a brainstorm, for example, to see what would be all the benefits you can gain by accepting other ideas or accepting other people, other qualities, or the attitudes in the team. What would be the negative point or of having always the same person, the same personality, the same skills at the same level? So just having this brainstorm and understanding the point of view of the manager could first help to better understand the situation. So you will have to help this person to express himself or herself, because as we said earlier, not accepting other ideas has two causes. One is I'm afraid and I do not want to get out of my zone of comfort. And the other one is my ego. And because I think that my ego is much more important than yours. And we know, for example, that it's much more profitable and productive to share a collective ego, being proud of achieving stuff together, than being only the sole one, the only one who can feed your own ego. And that's why you have to steal successes from your colleagues or from your coworkers, and it doesn't go so long. So there is a frequent quote that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go in team. I'm afraid this kind of manager will lose his talent at the end of the day or at the end of the journey if he's not a little bit more tolerant.
Okay, great. Another one that we had, and we had two similar questions, and you have touched upon this as well, but maybe you could elaborate just a little bit more. Someone asked, does tolerance always equate to acceptance?
It's one of the basic principles of tolerance. It's really about, as we take the definition, which is accepting something which is different than what you are, what you think, what you feel, or whatever. It means that it's about accepting another point of view. It doesn't mean agreeing upon another point of view. It's much more easier first to just accept. I accept that you have another idea than mine. And then I will think about it, and maybe you will change my mind. And I will, in this case, accept your idea as well. But then here it's just about accepting the fact that you can be different from me. In tolerance, we have as well the self-tolerance. So it means that being tolerant to the other ones cannot be possible if you are not being tolerant towards yourself. And it's accepting that you are maybe wrong, accepting that you don't have maybe the truth, accepting that someone has more experience than you. So it's about a little bit as well humility and ability to make some perspective from what you think, which is the absolute truth, and what is maybe the reality.
Okay, great. So I think that's it for questions. They were all very similar in this format. But I would like to thank you, Laurence, for your time and for sharing all of your interesting experiences and ideas, and also to Stefan and Jay. If you have anything else to say, Laurence, please go ahead. But otherwise, I think I'd also like to thank everyone for attending and for asking brilliant questions. And hopefully we will continue doing events and things like this in the future. So keep an eye out.
Thank you so much, Sabah. Thank you so much for the invitation. Keep on the good work. It's so important. And please do not hesitate to ask more questions by email. I think you will receive the coordinates in a mail afterwards, and the presentation will be available for you as well. So just a few words, be happy. It's so important.
Perfect. And yes, everyone, you will be receiving the recording as well as the presentation. And that should be coming in the next few days. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.